We're practicing being present, we're practicing being aware and awake, but we're also practicing letting go. Letting go of identifying with thoughts, letting go of identifying with the mind. And the mind is where the judgments and evaluations come. Letting go of identifying with the voice in your head. Allowing yourself to be aware of all of it, and allowing yourself to let go of having the idea that it should be any particular way. Letting go of the idea that it should be different than it is. Because if in your life, out of practicing meditation consistently, you're able to begin to have that be so for you as you go through your day, as you go through your life, have it be so that it is the way it is, and to be alive and to be aware and to be awake is to be present to the way it is. Now that can be tricky because part of the way it is that you think it should be different. Listen to what I just said. That can be tricky because part of the way it is that you think it should be different. But it's not, it's the way it is. So part of what there is to be present to in terms of the way it is that you think it should be different. That's the way it is, just like everything else is the way it is. See? So if you separate that thought and say, well, I think it should be different, is not part of what should be, I should allow to be the way it is, then you start to dig a hole for yourself. So part of the practice of meditation is to start to become familiar with who you are, become familiar with the nature of the awareness itself, which is just here. That's the simplicity of it that is so complicated, right? The simplicity of it is the awareness is just here, that's it. That's why one of the highest teachings is silence, because when you're being silent, you're not interacting with anything, you're not thinking about anything, there's no engaging with anything, but when you're being silent, it's closer to being the way awareness is, which is just it. Awareness just is. It's not going anywhere. It's not trying to accomplish anything. It's not trying to figure anything out. It's not trying to escape from anything. It's not trying to hold on to anything. And it is naturally happy. It's naturally satisfied, because there's no way for it to be dissatisfied. The only way it could be dissatisfied is for it to think that there was something that it lacked, or something that it needed, something that it wanted, and that wouldn't be the way awareness is, that would be the mind. That would be the personality, that would be the conditioning. It's not an easy, this is not an easy transition to go from thinking that it's not an easy transition to go from thinking that you know what's going on to realizing that you don't, right? I mean, there's a lot of value placed on knowing what's going on in the world, isn't there? Right? There's a lot of value placed in that. The more you know, the more valuable you are, the more important you are, supposedly, because you know what's going on. And in your own life, right, that's an important thing that you've been practicing as a person all your life, is to know what's going on, to be more and more knowledgeable, to know what's going on. And then through these practices and these teachings, what you come to recognize and notice is that you don't know what's going on, and you don't need to know what's going on. But that's something that your conditioning really refuses to accept. It refuses to let go of. And so when you interact with these teachings, you think about them. You can't help it. You know, you think about them. And because we talk in language and we use concepts to talk about that which can't be spoken of, your mind will grasp the language and grasp the concepts and try and think about the concepts as a way of escaping from the world of the concepts, as a way of escaping from the identification with the mind. Of course, that's never going to go anywhere. That's just going to be a vicious cycle, a vicious circle. And so that leaves you frustrated. So in the end, it could be said that when you're practicing, there's only two possibilities. But bottom line, there's only two possibilities. You either are aware of being aware, you either are aware of who you are, in which case you are relaxed, you see. If you are aware of who you are, if you're aware of being aware, and you're being present that way, you are naturally just relaxed. You're just naturally relaxed because you're not trying to go anywhere. You're not trying. Right? You're not at odds with anything. You're not in conflict with anything. You're in the flow. You're just going with the flow. You're just being present. And so you're relaxed. So that's one possibility, that you are aware of who you are and you're relaxed. The other possibility is that you're not aware of who you are, and then the practice is to relax. That simplifies things, right? You could say, one of the major aspects of practicing meditation is to reduce stress, to relax. Mindfulness-based stress reduction emphasizes simply relaxing. That in and of itself is a great accomplishment. To just be still and be able to be aware and let the body relax and let the mind calm down is a great accomplishment. And if you just practice meditation as a mindfulness practice where you focus your attention on the breath, because your attention can't be in two places at once, and so if it's focused on the breath, then it's not involved with mental activity, and the mental activity is where the agitation is, right? The mental activity is where the confusion is. The mental activity is that never-ending process of thinking that keeps you up at night, that never-ending process of thinking that needs to continue in order to maintain the sense of who you are. So just to be able to succeed in reducing stress is a great accomplishment, and that's a part of the practice of meditation. That's why I said when we began tonight, make sure you're aware of your body as we're doing the practice. Don't space out. Don't go away. This is not about going away. This is about being present. So you're either relaxed because you're aware of being aware, you're aware of the truth of yourself, which is naturally relaxed, or you're practicing relaxing. Because the truth is the case, regardless, whether you are aware of the truth and experiencing who you actually are and experiencing the way it is, it's that way whether you're experiencing it or not. So this is not about trying to get somewhere. This is about noticing where you already are. It's too easy. When you listen to teachings about it, the mind tries to take the teachings and think about them and understand them with the idea that, well, if I think about these things and I understand these things, maybe if I take notes and I study the notes and I remember these things the way I remembered things in school when I had to take a test, then at some point something will happen, something will change. I'll be different. I'll know who I am. And that's not the way this works. This is not about learning anything. This is about discovering that you don't need to learn anything. That who you are as awareness itself already knows. It is that which is knowing all the time. It has an immediacy about its ability to make contact with what appears before it and know it for what it is. And what is very important about its ability to make contact with what's happening and know it for what it is that it immediately is aware of what appears to be an appearance and it's not fooled. Awareness is not tricked. Awareness is aware that the body is an appearance. It's aware that time is an illusion. It's aware that the identity that you have it, that you are, is an appearance. It's an important appearance, right? It's an important appearance because you have to be able to function in the world, and so although it's an appearance, it's an important appearance, and you have to be good at the act. You have to be good as the actor that you are, acting your script. You know, you have to be good at acting your script. That's what the game is we're playing in the world. Everybody's an actor in this drama. And the better you are at acting your script and the better you are playing certain roles in this drama, you know, the more rewards you get, the more toys you get to have, the more success you get to have in the game we're all playing. But the thing that makes it acceptable, the thing that makes it something that doesn't interfere with your natural state, the sahaja, the natural state of happiness, is that you never forget that it's a game. You know it's a game. You know, it's one of the things that I have said here is that I don't share a lot about my personal life because I don't want to scare you. But the thing about that is that the reason that I can say that to you is because by being aware of who I am, I don't take all that seriously. That doesn't occupy my mind as something that I fret about or I worry about. It's craziness, just like your craziness, right? It's just craziness, like your craziness. And the craziness will continue, right? But it won't bother you so much, and you'll be better at operating in the craziness because you won't identify with it. It's not you doing that, it's your conditioning, it's the mind, it's your reactions, it's the interactions, it's the result of a number of different sources causing the way you are as a personality from moment to moment. And that's not a problem. It's only a problem when you identify with it, when you take it to be the truth, when you have it be who you are. Because when you have it be who you are, what's happening isn't just what's happening. When you have it be who you are, what's happening is happening to you. That's the difference, you see. It's not just what's happening, it's what's happening to you. It's not just life, it's your life. It's not just the emotions that occur, they're your emotions. It's not the thoughts that arise in your mind, they're your thoughts. You know, as Paul Hederman says when he talks about these things, your thoughts don't bother me, right? But my thoughts bother me, you see, and they're just thoughts, just like your thoughts. They're really no different than your thoughts because thoughts are insubstantial. They come and they go, and they're caused by conditioning. They're caused by past experiences. They're caused by the survival, fear-based mental state that human beings exist in. And so they need not, in and of themselves, be a bother. They're just thoughts. But they are a bother, and they do trouble you when you identify with them as your thoughts, and you take them seriously, and you depend on them. You depend on thinking and using thinking as a way of operating. And it's crazy making. It's neurotic. It's inherently neurotic. It keeps you stuck in a pretense. It keeps you stuck in a pretense, and there is a sense of it being a pretense, you know? In other words, one of the aspects of being a typical person, being a typical personality, if you really pay attention, is that there's always this ongoing concern that you're going to be caught, you know, that you're going to be caught and it's going to get seen that you don't know what you're doing. If you're really honest and you really pay attention to, you know, your experience, you'll notice that there's that concern that I'm going to be discovered and it'll be found out that I don't know what I'm really doing, that I'm clueless. And the reason that that fear is there is because it's true. Right? The reason that fear is there is because you are pretending, right? You are pretending to be something that you're not. You are pretending to be an actual person, an actual existing personality that is consistent in time, right? That is real, an actual personality. When in reality, even if you're not aware of it, there's a sense that that's not true because you know that you're always changing. That's one of the things that makes you feel so insecure, right? Is that you know that what you thought yesterday isn't what you are thinking today. And therefore what you'll think tomorrow isn't what you were thinking today. So how can you live a consistent life with those things changing? That's why relationships don't work. Right? Because you fall in love, and when you're in love, the natural tendency of the system to procreate goes into effect, right? And you go crazy. You know, everything seems perfect. You don't see you don't see the other person realistically. You're not yourself, right? When you're in love, you're not yourself. You know, you're in this like fog of happiness and everything, and then you do stupid shit like get married. And then after the marriage, you know, all the sex calms down, you know, and you look across the table and you say, what the hell was I thinking? That's because of how unrealistic human beings are, you know. And the thing about it that makes it worse is that people will continue to repeat the same mistake, you know. You'll fall in love and get married, and then it doesn't work out, you know, because you change and the other person changes, right? And you're not in love anymore, so you don't just feel like accepting everything they do anymore. It's like the story that I often tell about this is, you know, when you're in love and you go out to dinner and the food's there and, you know, your lover orders something different than you, and during the meal your lover reaches across with their fork and picks up some of your food and tastes it, and you think to yourself, oh, isn't she so cute? I just love her so much. Look at her tasting my food, right? And a year later in the same restaurant, having the same meal, and she reaches across for your food and you say, hey, you ordered your food, I ordered my food. Let's stick with that program, right? Because you're not in love anymore, right? So now you see the person differently, and you're changing all the time. You feel differently all the time. What you didn't notice before bothers you now. And because you're unrealistic about it and you can't see it for what it is, right? You believe what you think and feel, and then you're in conflict with this person that you're married to. And so what do? So then you build a file, right? You start putting incidents in the file, you know, oh, here's another time when she shit on me. You know, here's another instance that proves that we really a mismatch. Here's another incident that proves that this is a big mistake, until the file gets full enough, and then you get a lawyer and give the file to the lawyer. Right? And then you get a divorce, and you pay the consequences. You have to split your toys. Right? And then what do? You do it again. You fall in love and forget everything that happened, right? And now this one's going to work. This is the one that's going to work. This is the right choice, right? And this can go on, you know, depending on how stupid you are. In my case, I was, you know, extremely stupid. This can go on, you know, a number of different times in your life, until it gets to the point where you get to middle age or a little older, you know, and you've paid out all this money. You had to split your toys several times. And so you get to this place that's called resignation, you know, where you just give up. You just give up. You say, well, I don't know, you know, I don't know what the answer is, and I can't stand going through another divorce, so I'm just going to be alone together. And that's a common story, right? Because most of humanity is living in this state of confusion, in this state of ignorance, where people can't understand what's going on, why it doesn't work. And yet they keep trying to do the same things that don't work. So every solution becomes the new problem, right? So this practice of meditation and these teachings are really offering you what they promise to offer you, which is liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from being crazy. Liberation from thinking that you're a personality. Liberation from continuing to run the same patterns of dysfunctional behavior so that you don't have to escape from your own life. That's what most people begin to do as a way of dealing with life, is they try and figure out ways to escape from their own life. So life becomes about having a cigarette, life becomes about having a drink, life becomes about smoking some pot, life becomes about looking at pornography, life becomes about watching television, life becomes about on and on and on, without people realizing that these are all ways to escape from reality. And the reality that it's being escaped from promises peace and promises excitement and vitality and fulfillment. But it hasn't delivered on that, and so people figure, well, the next best thing is to escape, because the only thing that has happened is suffering, because things never seem to work out. Things are never a match for the way that I would like them to be, including me. Including me. When I look in the mirror, I don't like it. When I think about who I am and I am aware of my failures and my limitations and my repeated patterns of destructive behavior, I don't like it. I don't like me. So this is mental illness I'm talking about. This is mental illness, because that's what results in depression, that's what results in anxiety, that's what results in addiction. And as I said the last time we met, it is the pervasive condition of humanity. It is the craziness that is considered to be normal. And so one of the things that these teachings and practices are about is to allow yourself, give yourself the opportunity to wake up and see things as they are. Wake up and see that the craziness. It's interesting because I have said here in the past, just because the herd is running off a cliff, you don't have to run with it. I actually saw a cartoon on Facebook today of that exact thing. It was a cartoon of a herd running off a cliff and one black sheep facing the other direction, trying to get back. And that's the way it is, really, because if you look at the way humanity is operating, it continues to operate within a way of seeing things in which there's the right and the wrong. There's us and there's them. There's the way it should be and the way it is. And this is always in conflict. And so there's wars, right? And there's political parties, and there's factions, and there's conflict between families and conflict between parents and children. So these practices and these teachings offer a way of coming to terms with the craziness and going sane, so that you can actually experience being happy, and the personality that you are stops driving you crazy. You can understand that the personality is the personality. You're the awareness. You're the awareness. That's the subtle, consistent, unchanging reality that gets ignored all the time. And it gets ignored. When it gets ignored, it's being ignored because you're paying attention to thinking. This is how simple it is. I was talking to somebody earlier today about the idea that people have when you get involved with these teachings and practices. You want to have the enlightenment experience, right? You want to have the enlightenment experience, right? So that's what you're seeking, that's what you're after. In reality, it's available all the time. It has to be available all the time because you already are who you are. So it has to be available all the time. And it really is as simple as Rupert Spira says when he says to people, are you aware? And when people answer that, they don't hesitate, they say yes. And he says, okay, how do you know? Well, when I asked you the question, you looked and you saw the awareness that's there and answered the question. That's the same awareness that is always there when you're preoccupied with thinking. So all you have to do is notice that when you tell me what you think, you tell me what you think because you're aware of it, and that awareness that's aware of it is what you ignore almost all the time. So you're telling me what you think and you're identifying with the thought like you're the thinker of the thought, right? And that closes you off and separates you from the awareness of that. So it's there all the time. The awareness is there all the time. And all you have to do when you have a thought and you're relating to the thought as if it's a fact, and you're relating to the thought as if you're thinking the thought, notice that none of that could be so unless there was an awareness of that. Isn't that true? None of that could be so unless there was an awareness of that. And that awareness is what you are, and it is free, and it never changes, and it doesn't need anything, and it doesn't want anything. It is liberation, it is freedom, it is what's possible, and it's there all the time. How can it be simpler than that? But the thing is that, we're so conditioned, so thoroughly conditioned, that it's hypnotic. Your relationship to your thinking, your relationship to thoughts is hypnotic. It's hypnotic in the sense that part of the hypnosis is that the thought that you're the thinker of your thoughts, which is being thought, is considered to be a reality. Let me repeat that. The thought that you're the thinker of your thoughts is just a thought. But that thought is not considered to be a thought. That's considered to be true and real. And once you're in that process, then you're completely ignorant because you're ignoring the awareness of the whole thing. If you really look at what I just said, right, and you really see it, right, and you really recognize that it is in fact the way it is, right, then you see that, and it's kind of like you have this possible aha, you have this possible realization, right? But then when you walk out of this room and you go back into the insanity and the gears kick in again and you engage again with the habit patterns that run when you're around other people, when you're driving your car, and so forth and so on, then that realization just disappears, just pops, and then you're back in the shit. Right? So it's going to take something to break the spell. And when you meditate, it's an opportunity for you to let go of the attachment, to let go of the identification with the thinking, and to pay attention to the breath. And when your attention is on the breath, it's not in the thought process. And just by doing that consistently over time, the mind will calm down because it's not being energized by your attention. The body will relax. And then it becomes easier to see the truth, not just when you're meditating, but to see it while you're in the middle of your life, which is where it matters the most. So I'll keep waking you up, I'll keep poking you, I'll keep repeating these things. And you just have to keep coming back and touching the stone. You have to keep meditating. Remember what I said is that if you're not meditating every day, right, that you haven't established a practice yet, and so what meditation can do for you is unlikely to occur. Okay, the next class will be Sunday at 8:30. Have a good evening.